Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Transmigration Reiwa roundup video of all the 15 books we've done since the last one. It's a real good thing Nick Nack's not in the room with me. I'm pretty sure he would have taken me out for that joke. Just fully committed murder.
No, the weapon I'd used to do it too.
Yeah, you already tried to kill me with it. Jesus. Anyways, so we're actually back with A Stepmother's Märchen, or Fantasy of a Stepmother, volumes 2, 3, and 4. Big, chunky, thick boys. You almost look like you're gonna cry.
Was a lot.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
like. I was like, oh, 3 volumes. These were big volumes, even one of them.
that's what I'm saying. A Stepmother's Marchen and Who Made Me a Princess. For some reason, those two particular series are printed in really large volumes. What's the publisher on the back of those?
Seven Seas.
You know what? Who Made Me a Princess is also Seven Seas. I
So it's the
wonder if
publisher's fault that I'm kidding.
I wonder if the publishing house has a tendency towards thicker volumes with more chapters compiled into each, because both of those series have much thicker volumes than the ones I have from Yen Press or Ize Press. So actually that would make sense, that as being the two series that are kind of like the most dense in terms of how much you're reading. But also I think not just in terms of page count, the story was dense across these 3 volumes. Like you got a lot.
Yeah, a fair amount happened.
Yeah, like a good amount of stuff happened. And to be honest, the reason why I had you do all 3, right, was because I had 3. We basically doing one volume at a time. It works for some series, especially if we're following them as they come out, but we just don't really have time to keep up with everything book to book as it comes out. And in sometimes if a I will say one thing A Stepmother's Marchen does is that they don't always end a book at the end of an arc. So that's what I'm wondering. I think Seven Seas might be more focused on just putting out thick books rather than, because like some of the other stuff from Ize Press, they're a little bit more conscious about where they end a book. So they like leave off on a cliffhanger or something like that. But with the Stepmother's Marchen, they actually have chapter counts and names inside the front cover, right? So because and each chapter has like a number next to it, so it's like part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. So it tells you exactly how many parts are in a particular arc. It's actually really conveniently divided that way, in my opinion, because you could just look at the arc titles and
Oh, I appreciate that. To be honest, like I could, like it's not that because the chapters are completely different here,
Mhm.
but I did notice this. If I, where is it? Somewhere in this book, it actually gave me the episode count that these were based on. Yes, here
Mhm.
we go. Chapters 20 through 39 is volume 2 here, but here it's chapters 5 through 9 in the volume itself. So some of
Mhm.
these chapters are combined.
Yeah,
And I
that's what I mean.
appreciate that because not all of the webtoons we've done have done that, and it always seems to be conveniently the ones that I'm most willing to go in and see, just read a little bit more ahead.
Yeah, and I think the way that those are combined is that most of the arcs, they try to shorten each arc into like a single chapter. So instead of seeing part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, you'll just see like summer vacation or something, or the court trial, and maybe there's part 1, part 2 if it's a really long arc. But it's not like in the web comic, the chapters can be up to like 9 parts for a single arc. So I think that's what they're doing, but big chunky volumes, and it doesn't the ending doesn't necessarily cut off with a specific cliffhanger or something. It just goes for so thick and then ends. And to be honest, a lot happened in volumes 2 through 4. I mean, we've gotten character progression from pretty much everyone, a court trial, almost the loss of someone's hand, a significant delving back into her original timeline. Like a lot has happened.
Yeah, it was honestly quite dense. Like, look, sarcastic comments and faces aside at the beginning, I actually did really enjoy this. Like at first, I'll say The second book started a bit slow for my taste.
Because the second book is concerned with
It almost felt more like wrap up and resolution for the setup in the first book, and it didn't really feel like it had a lot going for itself outside of like one singular moment
mhm,
where I believe it was that the Crown Prince uh confesses in huge air quotes to the main character.
yeah.
But other than that specific moment, it felt like that book had the least going on in it.
Well, because yeah, I think you're right. It is wrap up. She hosts a memorial for her husband to kind of establish herself. She puts herself into sort of like the married women's circle instead of the young women's circle, which is where she needs to be socially. You know, she
Mhm.
has the whole thing with the fucking crown prince who something's off about him. He's got
He
problems. He's got issues.
The book makes no secret that he's not fully sincere here.
Yeah, he's got issues. Issues we haven't seen yet, but like you can feel that they're there through the way that he's written. Which I appreciate, right? And then book just as a brief overview, book three is where the trial starts. So the trial is kind of like a major part of the story at this point because her eldest stepson, Jeremy, essentially commits treason, right? And she's got to find a way to save him to fulfill her promise to his father. But she's really struggling because she has to reach out to people that she didn't think she'd have to, right? So
Some
it's
of
kind
these
of
are characters that she previously got into conflict with in book one, if I'm remembering correctly.
yep, like the other members of the family, especially. Um, and then book four is a little bit odd because we finish off the trial and whatever kind of concludes with it, and then we have this huge chunk going back to the so it takes us back to her original timeline where she died in that carriage accident, but then shows us the reaction of different characters when she doesn't show up at the wedding.
I
And
thought
then
this
when
was the
they,
most interesting part of the book because it took me a second because you're not seeing it from her perspective, you're seeing it from the other characters' perspectives.
Mhm.
And for a second, I'm like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah, because
Because
they
there
don't
are a
set it
lot,
up as a,
yeah, they don't immediately tell you it's a flashback.
yeah.
You see these other characters' perspectives, and it's like, oh, they're the same characters we've known for a bit. And then you're like, wait, something is off. There, that slight distance there. She's colder here. And then
Hmm.
you realize that it's the old timeline.
Yeah.
And then it keeps going. And it's almost like looking back, the early parts with her were kind of an unreliable narrator situation
Hmm.
because you're following the kids now in the past, and the kids, they're not close with her, but
But
you
they
get the
don't
idea they
hate
don't
her
hate her the
guts.
way she thought they did.
Yeah,
In
so
fact, we find out
she,
that Jeremy, who was originally, we originally were under the impression that he disinvited her from his wedding.
yeah,
That
like
wasn't the case at
genuinely.
all. In
And
fact, he
not
was
just
angry that she didn't show up.
no, no, not just disinvited her, but sent his fiance to disinvite her because he didn't even want to talk to her about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the ultimate disrespect, right? Of like, I'm not even going to tell you myself that I don't want you at my wedding. I'm going to send someone else to do it for me and just expect you not to show up. And there the kids are, they're so excited that she's going to be there. They're like, we're going to give her a gift and she's going to be there and Jeremy's going to see her and all that. And they're like, where is she? You know? And it's like it's so heartbreaking because you think back to the way she felt where she was like all of the kids hated me. And they just wanted me gone and they were happy I left, you know?
It gives a lot more credence, in my opinion, to the parts that immediately followed the reset when she's like, these aren't the same kids. And no, those were the same kids. They just didn't have that immediate emotional connection with her.
Mm-hmm.
So they were, but they still felt for her because she was still a present part in their lives that wasn't outright negative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's good. And to be honest, I was actually remember I had told you I had stopped reading this at a certain point, right? So I originally had stopped reading this right around when the trial happened, actually. So everything since the trial has been new for me too. So I didn't know that we were gonna get this. Like, I've never seen. Okay, in one other series I've read like this, I've seen a flashback to like the original timeline of a character post their death. Right? One other series I've seen that, and it was in a totally different context.
Same here. I've only ever seen this one time before in a completely different context.
Yeah, so it's like that's actually really fucking cool. And then Cardinal Richelieu, who's just been that's another thing. Like, I don't trust the prince. I also don't trust Cardinal Richelieu, who has been kind of in and out for the whole series so far. And by the way, kudos to anyone who thinks they might recognize the name Cardinal Richelieu. That is a name that was used for another famous historical character in another very famous novel. No.
No,
Okay. I think if I'm correct and I'm remembering the name right, it's the name of the cardinal in the Three Musketeers,
never read that.
Richelieu.
Never read the beginning to end.
At least I think so. Yeah. But anyways, he's like, so he's the prince's tutor as well. So like he's often around when the prince is around. And he's like taking he has like an immediately negative take on Shuri. And like at first, you want to say it's because she's like a young woman getting involved in politics, right? And that's just not the way things are done in the Empire. But there's another woman on the political council. Like she's older, but there is another woman there, and he doesn't have that same negative opinion. I mean, he seems to have a negative opinion of just about everyone, but he really has it out for her. And not the other woman. So maybe it's not based on the fact that she's female, but maybe it's based on her interactions with the crown prince. But I think she's made it pretty clear that she has no real interest in the crown prince. You know what I mean? So like, I don't understand. Like, you feel like you don't understand what yet why he's so negative about her, other than her involvement with the crown prince potentially.
Well, this is the same guy, and they hint that he knows that this is not her first go around. They hint that he might know,
Or at least
right?
he knows that like it's possible
Yeah.
or something like that. But then again, it feels like, well, because we also saw his reaction to her original life, right? And he didn't really like her then either. And she wasn't a reincarnator in her first life. So, like, what caused that animosity? Like, what was it originally? Was it just her being an upstart, essentially halfway to commoner woman coming into politics? Or is there something deeper? Because it doesn't seem like she had a relationship with the crown prince at all in her original timeline. Not that we've seen, at least. Like, they had no connection, so he couldn't dislike her because of her relationship with the crown prince. That's a unique thing to kind of this version of her life as far as we are aware. So like that doesn't feel like it's it. What is the church doing? Because the church seems like it's doing something a little sketchy, a little iffy. I don't like it. It gives me the ick. I
Something is
sense it.
being set up here.
Yeah. I
I
I
will
th-
say, oh, sorry, go ahead. No, I
I
don't
was
want to
gonna
cut
say
you off here.
I think that's one of the greatest triumphs of this series is I can feel that there are pieces moving that I am not privy to.
I will say, so I think in the first discussion we did on this, I praised how it felt fun and different to be doing family politics over court politics. And I think we moved more towards the court politics and away from the family politics. But I do appreciate the way that they wrap up these family politic arcs. Like, it doesn't feel like in the family politics realm, they're lingering on a lot of these clearly self-motivated people, but not downright evil people.
Yeah, and I think
They're
the other
really
thing
trying to give
is,
them a slightly more sympathetic light.
well, and they're not exactly ignoring the idea of family politics altogether.
Mm-mm.
Like, because she knows she has to set up like a strong familial position for Jeremy and she has to get the others like
Yeah,
taught and trained. And so, like, periodically, we still see glimpses in at that sort of family dynamic and family issues. In fact, at the end of volume 4, we're going into another family centric arc, right? Which is the vacation, which is going to continue into volume 5.
but like at this point, like I'm getting a better idea that she knows she has to not necessarily play nice, but play the game with these
Mm-hmm.
family members in the first place if she wants to at all be functional
She can't
in court politics.
cut them out entirely and make herself the lone pillar of the house. She needs some of the other members. She needs that woman who she originally brought in to teach her stepdaughter, right? She needs her because she knows all the gossip, she knows all the people. Like she needs these connections that they provide because despite the fact that she doesn't like them and they're self-serving as fuck, right? They're still family and they weren't gonna like murder her stepchildren. They just wanted power. Like they're still family. It's not like like the aunt, right? The woman. She wasn't trying to kill the little girl or anything. She was genuinely teaching her like how to be a lady. I mean, maybe it was a little bit more matter of fact and brutal than, you know, than Shuri wanted, but they weren't trying to kill them or get rid of them. Which, as opposed to like there are other stories I've read where yes, the extended family is actively trying to kill the heir so that they can take over the family. That doesn't seem to be what they're trying to do. They just want power and influence, and they can get that through just being around the children as they grow up,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Oh, here's another thing from the church that's giving me the ick. The In that flashback sequence, we do find out that despite her being like Shuri being like mostly having a negative reputation amongst everybody before
Mm-hmm.
her death, as soon as she died, suddenly she's this holy martyr in this basically, to my understanding, plot to kill like the dissidents.
Yeah, yeah, like essentially sort of a holy war.
Yeah.
Yeah, a crusade against anyone who stands against the nobility. Because, like, I feel like maybe, perhaps, based on that, my initial assumption would be that there's something brewing between sort of the common people of the empire and the nobility, right? And the church positions her, right, like loving mother who took care of these stepchildren of hers and then was brutally murdered for it by this dissident group as sort of like a noble martyr perhaps, um, and a justification to go to war against the group that did it. But I mean, again, this is all new for me as well. Like I read a little bit ahead, but I didn't read that far ahead. I think I read to the end of like volume 5, but that's it. So and it doesn't, I'm like, I want to know. Also, it is interesting, in my opinion, that even though we're shifting more towards court politics, if you notice, the king has been barely involved so far. And I mean, the queen got involved, but it was really just for the whole treason thing, and that's to be expected. It was treason. Do you know what I mean? So
Hilariously, didn't
like,
they end up kind of not friends, but almost like more respect between the two afterward?
yeah, like the queen and Shuri like genuinely have a working relationship now. So I think it's really interesting that thus far we haven't really gotten like because often when you move into court politics in a book like this, it's because the king or the queen has like some deep connection to like a main character, like abandoned empress, right? And they're
Mhm.
getting involved personally. That's not happening here. She's basically still on her own. Like she and the queen are like functionally acquaintances at this point, but that's not really giving her a whole lot of like extra sway per se. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do like the Queen as a character right now because the Queen, like after the trial was over, basically pulled Shuri aside and was like, "Look, this was all just a power play here. I wasn't gonna take your son's hand."
Yeah. Yeah, and she was like, "But you went above and beyond and in the
Yeah,
opposite direction of where we expected you to go."
it
Um,
was kind of stupid,
yeah, and I don't
but I
know if
kind of
you,
like it.
yeah, she was like, "I don't know if you really benefited yourself or us from this decision." Really, I think we all just came out around the same.
Looking a lot stupider.
Yeah. Like I look more vindictive and you look more foolish. And that's okay. All right.
It's clear what your goals are. I don't think you're greedy.
Yeah, like you're definitely not in it for yourself. That's to be commended. With very
I
much with a
love
questioning tone.
I love their dynamic post trial. It's great.
Yeah. So basically, you're an idiot. You're an honest idiot, but you're an idiot.
It's like the idiot I like.
Right? Like the idiot I trust not to betray me. Because it's just not what they want to do. Oh. But yeah, no, I think ironically, this is maybe one of the better written stories that I've read. Like just genuinely, the author is doing a really good job weaving a plot, kind of connecting everything and hinting that bigger things are going on, but not hinting so hard that you're like, ah, this is what's going to happen. No,
I
you're
think
like genuinely like,
what benefits this series over, I think, other series, and I do like a lot of these other series. Some of them are like some of my favorites of of transmigration
mm-hmm,
or of like re or like or reset.
mm-hmm,
What's benefiting this story over those, I think, is it's not at all centering on any kind of romance. Not really.
no.
Whereas those, a lot of the times, as these series start to feel like they're spinning their wheels, maybe just a little bit, it's because it's treating like it's starting to focus more on the romance or on the love triangles instead of um, the political plays of their characters. I don't. This series hasn't shown any signs at all of doing that.
Well, I think it would be antithetical to the story and what Shuri is trying to build if they tried to introduce a romance, because
Hmm.
any romance that Shuri held would weaken her position and her stepchildren's positions, right? Because any threat of her bearing another child as the current head of house, right, would kind of threaten the positions of her stepchildren and also like society around her. So like she knows that she cannot. That's one of the reasons why in her original life, before she got killed, she was excited to go off, live somewhere else out of court, and maybe get like fall in love and get married, right? Because she knew she couldn't do it until Jeremy was head of house, grown up, and married, right? Because any movement she makes towards a relationship destabilizes her positioning. Um, which means that she's essentially not able to focus on a romance at all. And thus far, technically, two people are nominally in love with her per
When
se,
one is the
right?
crown prince, we're not
And
off to a good start here.
well, I say nominally in love because it's more of a weird mommy obsession in the way that it's portrayed thus far. That's a little creepy. And then the other one very much seems like one of those parasocial relationships where you very much admire an older member of like the opposite or the same gender, and you're like, oh my god, I have such a crush on them. But it's one of those things where you grow out of it as you grow up, or like they look at you and they just see another child. And so they're like, you'll grow out of it as you grow up, is what it feels like between her and the other boy.
Mhm.
Yeah. So like they're not really romances. Like one's a parasocial relationship of like just has someone having a crush and another person being like, I know that they have a crush, but I'm not going to do anything about it because it's not appropriate and I'm not interested. And the other one being weird. Just fucking weird and one-sided. Wholly one-sided. Especially because the crown prince kind of insinuates to his mother that like Shuri is the one he wants to marry. And like that's not gonna be possible. You know what I mean? Like socially, that's not possible. Like she's the widowed marchioness. Like he's gotta know that. You know what I mean? Like he's been educated in court politics. He knows this. He's just choosing to be an obstinate little brat. Oh my god, I am so sorry, Peaches. I just lifted this up and it against her nose.
Oof. Poor
Not
Peaches.
hard, but I do feel bad. But you know what I mean? Like there's not really any setup for romance at the moment that would pan out in any satisfying way. And I'm kind of happy with that. I think you spend more time on the politics by not having romance, and the politics and social relationships are definitely more interesting than the romance when you've read so many of these that do have a lot of romance in the
Yeah,
focus.
yeah.
You know?
Hmm.
Also, it's nice that there's kind of realistic It's like a realistic depiction of the fact that yeah, like people can have crushes or be obsessed with other people, but socially it's not acceptable in this hierarchy, you know? Because like we've read some others where it's just like, oh, this like almost destitute, like barely a noble, and like marries into like the highest ranking ducal family in the realm because of some weird thing. And I'm like, no, no, that would be a huge scandal. Like that's not how that works.
That's scandal in the modern day, much less like these like fantasy eras.
Yeah. I mean, not to stir the pot a little bit, but I mean the most Diana, daughter of an earl, because Diana was not a titleless commoner. She was the daughter of an earl. She held a title, but I mean, I'm just saying. It's interesting. I'm really enjoying Stepmother's Marchen. More so because I'm getting to read a lot of it now for the first time with you, as opposed to knowing what's going to happen and just being like, "Ooh, I want us to get to this point." No, at this point, I'm like, "This is also new for me," and I am enjoying myself.
Yeah,
And
I am
I'm
too.
excited to continue this. I do have the next couple books on pre-order, although it'll be a while before they get here. So it might be a while, depending on when this video is at. It might be a while before you see the next one, or it could be soon before you see the next one, depending on when this goes out and when those books get here.
I don't know that we have hard dates set on these.
No, God no, I gave up on that long, long ago.
These go up in whatever fucking order we want.
Oh yeah, this is why I no longer keep a calendar on screen at the in the bottom corner because it would be sad.
That's why we can no longer tell you what's next. We don't know what's next either.
Exactly. Do you have anything else you want to say about these volumes?
No, no, I've said my piece at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, then we'll see you back next time with something. Like, rest assured, we will be back. I just don't know what with at this point. So, see you next time.
Bye.